Well, hi-ho, folks, and welcome back to another adventure of Turwinkle, the Gnome Mage. Well, hi, Turwinkle.
Hello.
Are you all set for tonight?
Affirmative.
Well, great, because tonight we are going to go and talk with Aeleaena of the Blood Wolf Clan, a wonderful role player over on the Moonguard server. And so we're going to find out all about her character, how she made her, what she's like, what her storyline is, and find out a little bit about her in real life, and get some advice for those new role players out there that would like to start role playing in World of Warcraft. So that sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it, Turwinkle?
Sure.
All right, well, great. And so, folks, Turwinkle's going to go put his fluffy disguise on, and we are going to go find and talk with Aeleaena of the Blood Wolf Clan. Alrighty, folks, as you can see, we have put on our Sluffy disguise because Aeleaena has race changed, and we'll talk about that when we get into the discussion on her character. But we are here in the Seat of Knowledge in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, and so let us go and see. I think she is right up here. There she is. And again, we have Aeleaena. She is of the Blood Wolf clan. She is a level 100 Blood Elf priest. Hello, Aeleaena.
Hi, how are you?
I am really well, and it is so nice to meet you and talk with you all about your character today. I'm really looking forward to this tonight.
As am I, as am I. It's a bit overdue, but, life happens.
It does, and so, sometimes you save the best. You want to savor it, and so here we are. And so, folks, when we come back, we're going to find out all about Aeleaena and her wonderful role play here over on Moonguard. So we'll be right back as we begin our discussion of Aeleaena in the Blood Wolf clan. Alrighty, folks, and we are back. And so, Aeleaena, you did not start out as a Blood Elf, did you?
No, I didn't. I actually started off as a Night Elf priestess way back when. This is actually my oldest tune from Vanilla.
Okay, and why did you decide to change her to a Blood Elf?
I have a very diverse friends list, whether it be Battletag or Skype, just all around. I can't really stay in one spot for very long, and I do like to have varieties. I know that for rating this expansion, I've debated, staying Alliance or going Horde, and a lot of my Horde friends really needed a healer that knows what they're doing, because apparently, I guess their healers don't know what to do, so I transferred to Horde. And I just chose a Blood Elf because it's more, aesthetically appealing, but it has a bit more mana conservation in a sense because of the Arcane Torrent, since we no longer have Hymn of Hope. So I kind of looked out on my part as a raider what's going to be good for mana regen.
Okay, well, wonderful. And so, how long have you been playing this tune then?
Um, Overall, she is my main. So since Vanilla, if you mean like lately, I think the most consecutive days I've accumulated on her is about 315.
Oh, okay. So quite a while. Excellent.
Just a bit.
And I guess the final question for this segment is, how did you come up with her name, Aeleaena?
Oh God, that's like asking me what's my favorite chocolate. Um, I just go whatever feels, well, not feels, but sounds like a good name. I used to have a Night Elf Druidess on a Wormrest named Varese, which was a name almost entirely of vowels. So I really liked the root of it. So I took the middle part of her name, the EAE. I just took that and added a few extra letters, and that's basically how I got it.
Okay. Well, sometimes those are the best ways to get a name that sticks with you, is one that you just kind of, slap together and you're like, wow, okay, this works great. And so it's something that flows really well. I love it, Aeleaena. It really flows off the tongue nicely, and it really can go between Night Elf and Blood Elf rather easily, doesn't it?
It does.
All right, excellent. And so, folks, when we come back, we're going to find out all about Aeleana's backstory, what her character's story is all about. So we'll be right back with that. Alrighty, folks, and we are back. And so, Aeleana, so you have race change. So let us first talk about your night elf and what her storyline was, how you ended that, and what the storyline is for you currently. So let's start with the night elf. What happened there? What was the storyline with her?
Well, since she was my longest character, she has fought through several of the wars. And during that time, she has seen many things. But one of the things that before I race change is that I was in the guild, the Maga Senate of Dalaran, and it was really hard for me to kind of get anywhere, just because as the only night elf priestess, not only was I ambassador for the Sisterhood Iceli, I was also the ambassador from Darnassus to represent, and it did make it very hard. So I ended up resigning, and right now she is back at the Temple of the Moon, helping train more of the initiates and sisters, and getting them ready in case they are having to be deployed into Draenor or other areas such as Ashenvale and whatnot. So her story is on hiatus until I go back to that.
Okay. Alrighty, and so bring us up to date, I guess, with Aeleana. What is her storyline?
Well, I'm not too familiar with Blood Elf lore. I'm still looking into it, still observing it. But what I have so far is that she was sort of a street rat, so to say. She didn't grow up with much, but she was very, very kind and very sweet, and which she still is. But between the time period of Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, there was a big transition of like a polarity shift for her mentality. It's still hard to explain because I am still writing out the story and I don't want to give away too much information, but I will say that between that time period, she did go into the Botanica and several other places and saw a few things and had a few things happen that really messed her up in the head. But she's a very poetic person. She likes to speak in riddles at times, and so you'll never really get a clear answer out of her most of the time unless you play this little game with her, so to say.
Okay. Well, excellent. And so, folks, when we come back, we'll talk about Aeleana's roleplay style and get into how long she's been roleplaying and all that good stuff. So we'll be right back. Alrighty, and we are back. And so, Aeleana, how long have you been roleplaying in WoW?
Um, Probably halfway through vanilla. So about in WoW about 9.5 years. Outside of WoW, ever since I had my imagination playing the make believe games.
Okay. And I guess what is your roleplay style? Are you a heavy role player, multi-paragrapher? Are you reactionary role player? What kind of style do you have?
You know, it's funny that you actually ask that because I used to be a paragraph role player. But over time, I sort of come to this conclusion that there's two different types of paragraph role players. There's the ones that have fluff, which kind of bring about this air that, they think that they're all that in a bag of chips. But, some of it still gets to the point for a lot of them, and those are the ones I personally like. And then there are the ones where they're pardon my language, they are the douchey paragraph role players where they post 13 paragraphs in a public RP space spamming everybody's chat logs about how they take off their gear. And I'll give you an example. I was sitting in the Slaughtered Lamb when I was on Wormrust Accord, And there was a guy who comes in, sits down ideally, and describes how for about 4 paragraphs how he's taking off his gloves and how the veins are showing in and off and on while he's taking off his gloves and how he's removing his armor. And I kindly whisper him and I said, could you not post that many paragraphs? Because now I have to scroll through and see if the post is still there. And his reply was, type more than 2 sentences, scrub. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So there definitely are different styles for different folks, certainly. And
But
so,
it's harder for me nowadays to do a lot of paragraph role playing just due to the fact that um, I do zone out quite a bit and I kind of forget where I'm at. And it's hard for me to sort of look back where I was at. And then also being dyslexic is really, I have a custom made keyboard for dyslexia,
oh, wow.
which has helped. Um, but I honestly think the other contributing factor is that since English is not my first language, the grammar and the punctuation and all that is really hard for me at times. And so and because of a lot of that those benefactors, I've actually had people ignore me, even though I gave them a heads up, which really hurts. So I try to stay within a paragraph or two if I can manage to.
Right. Well, awesome. So, folks, when we come back, we are going to delve into a little bit about Aeleaena in real life and find out what she likes to do outside the game as well. So, we'll be right back as we talk about the player behind the screen. So, we'll be right back with that. Alrighty, folks, and we are back. And so, Aeleaena, the reason why we talk a little bit about you behind the screen is because we like to break those stereotypes of what role players are. We're not all 40-year-old guys living in mom and dad's basement eating Cheetos all day, but we are people from different backgrounds doing different things in all parts of the country, the world. And so tell us a little bit about you. What do you like doing outside of WoW?
I actually do a lot of volunteer work. Right now, I'm in the process of getting my medical degree as a pharmacist. So I've actually taken a job at a well, not a nursing home, it's actually a private and retirement home. And as a concierge, I have, my duties, but I also really enjoy being with the residents. I'm a very outgoing person. I'm very kind and compassionate. There have been times my compassion has actually got me into trouble, more times than not. I have I do a bit of traveling, here and there. Oh Lord, I did ballet and point for 10 years, and I really enjoyed it. It not only kept me physically active, but I've met and made a lot of good friends over those 10 years. I've done mounted archery. I actually have an injury from mounted archery, and believe it or not, there's that saying from Skyrim, or that one part of the dialogue. I took an arrow to the knee. That actually has happened
Oh,
during the mounted
no.
archery tournament. The guy wasn't watching where he was shooting, and he didn't have enough. He didn't have it aimed high enough, and it actually went into the back of my right knee.
Ah, ah, oh no.
So that was an interesting experience, and I always, when I always tell that story, my friends can never let me live it down.
Now,
So,
do you role play in any other games or?
um, not really. I kind of differentiate between PC and console games. I think WoW's basically the extent of what I'll do for RP, unless it's, like maybe on an anime forum that I know what I'm able to do and what not able to do. I love to read. Like my character Aeleaena, I am very poetic, and I love history. So actually a lot of my character designs come from the Victorian era, history within England and France and several other areas.
Oh, okay. And I guess in what ways do you think you're different from Aeleaena?
Well, I'm not an elf for starters,
Okay.
and I'm not a mana whore or a mana addict, as some people like to stereotype blood elves, and I'm not snobby to a degree. I think one of the biggest things between my character and I is that, um, oh Lord, our morals and ethics would probably be the biggest things. I will, if I strongly believe in this, I will go down with the ship, even if it's already a losing battle. For Aliana, if she knows she's going to lose, she will back off and think of another way to approach this or how to strategically win. There's, I think that's the biggest thing between both of us.
Oh, okay. Well, excellent. And so, folks, when we come back, we are going to get some advice from Aeleaena to those new role players out there and possibly for those veteran role players as well. So, we'll be right back with some advice for you folks out there. Alrighty, folks, and we are back. And so, Aeleaena, what advice do you have for those new role players out there that want to start role playing in WoW?
I would, well, with anybody, depending on your race, look up, what the norm is for that race. See what can be acceptable and what's not acceptable. But on, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable really also depends on your class. You're not going to see an undead warrior wielding the holy light. It's just physically impossible. Um, know that there is a difference between what you see game mechanic wise, whether it be your class abilities or dungeons, like what you see major characters do in dungeons, even if they have appeared in lore, versus what is actually canon in lore. Um, it's interesting because you see all these different types of characters, but it's really hard to decide what's acceptable, and also that really depends on what realm you're on. Some realms are really relaxed with new players, and people will actually try and help them. Other realms, not to bash, but between Wormrest and Moonguard, which are the two heaviest RP servers and most populated, there are those niches where people can be really elitist or really laid back. And then you just have the gray area in between. I have noticed that with the release of Draenor, there have been a lot of increase in Draenei role players, which is really great because we haven't seen a lot of Draenei lore or anything at all since the Burning Crusade. Now, as for character development and what you wish to do, if you want to have, a Tauren shaman who knows a bit of, maybe dabbles in slight light magic, that's sort of acceptable. But do keep in mind that certain races can't really cross class, so to say. Or blood elves are able to just because they are very magic heavy. I would, as a role player, be very cautious when designing your character based off a movie character, a book character, even TV show characters, because when you have that idea, you're going to make them after this. Not only can you get in trouble for copywriting if you like either use it word for word or use a lot of the characteristics, which I have seen some people get sued for stuff like that. But then some people get carried away and they're not really looking at what they're putting themselves as. Or you see people that want to RP things in lore that it's like a black dragon, or that's incredibly stupid, or a Death Knight with color changing eyes, which I have to ask, when have Death Knights become mood rings? Here, in my views, this is my this is my biggest thing. If you are going to RP, let's say, a character from one of your favorite books. I know that one of my tunes, who is Gilnean, she is sort of based off a character from the movie Les Miserables, Cosette. Um, Now, I have taken some characteristics and reworked them for my character, but long as you can play it off and do a smooth transition, for something like that, and it fits the stereotype slightly, I have no issue with it. Also, keep in mind classes. Classes are a very big thing to keep in mind. Just because, like I said, gameplay mechanics versus actual lore. You're not gonna see a rogue dual wielding semi-automatic guns. We may have planes, trains, and automobiles here in WoW, but I don't really think we have that. I mean, it's also reaction time. You can't suddenly, after being dismantled with, a weapon from, a gun, a slight gun wound, you're not going to be able to instantly whip out your gun and shoot, 6 bullets in a span of like 10 seconds. It's physically impossible. So that's another thing you really have to keep in mind. Um, Going back to races a bit, there are some class combinations or magic usages that will not be accepted. One of the biggest things I have seen is the Draenei. For the longest time, I have seen people go back and forth between, excuse me, Draenei being able to use shadow magic. Um, and this is where it gets tricky. On Draenor, you do see the Soulbinders in the Auchindoun, and that is ideally, a form of a shadow magic. They have the Soulflay and stuff, and it is plausible. Even after the fall of Auchindoun, you still have Soulbinders ideally, but they're very rare just because of the Draenei's exodus to Azeroth and wiping out, a lot of their race. Another thing would be cults. It's, oh my gosh, what was the cult in Twilight Hammer? There we go. Twilight Hammer is one of those cults that don't discriminate against race, and you see the multitude. So it's kind of hard to say a night elf can't use shadow magic. Because a lot of those cultists are former, spell users, or even, I'm blanking on the word, melee combatants. So when they join, if you remember the quest chain in Mount Hyjal, when you infiltrate, you sort of see into that, and then even looking into the lore, you kind of get more insight.
All right.
The final thing.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think the final thing I would really like to say, RP wise, if you're RPing a healer, keep in mind your energy is not infinite. Certain races can last longer for healing wise, because believe it or not, healing is life transferring, which is a gray area of necromancy. Believe it or not, but it's a technically a good form of necromancy, if I remember this correctly. So when you're transferring life or healing, you're actually transferring part of yours to them, and depending on how heavy the wound is, you're not going to be, a-okay after. You're going to be exhausted, or you're just going to collapse. I mean, like I said, certain races can do it longer, such as Draenei, Blood Elves, and Night Elves, because they've lived a lot longer. They know how to manage their resources, and they know when to go to traditional, such as stitching, and then heal. I mean, there's certain things that, you can do and not do. So also, if you're planning to RP a healer, brush up on that, because certain people are into the immersion. And then some people just want to be like, let's get it over with. We have other things to do.
All right. Well, that is some great advice, especially for those folks that are just starting. So, again, look at your canon, see what your characters can and cannot do based on lore, and really take it from there and kind of form your character within those boundaries. So that is some excellent advice for you folks out there. And so, folks, when we come back, we're going to get the shout outs from Aeleaena to those folks that she would really like to say hey to. So we'll be right back with that. Alrighty, folks, and we are back. And so, Aeleaena, who would you like to give a shout out to tonight?
I would like to give a shout out to my friend Malgear, one of the very first tanks that I actually met when I came to Wormrest when the server first opened. A shout out to Vaniticus and Balehite of Magasun and Dalaran. And I want to give a big shout out to my bae, Marivia, who is not only one of my best friends and my other me, but she is my amazing cult leader on one of my tunes, and I hope she feels better. And a big shout out to, oh my gosh, I just blinked, to all the other RPers, and to have a happy holidays.
Wonderful. Excellent. And so, folks, when we come back, we're going to say our goodbyes to this wonderful role player, Aeleaena of the Blood Wolf Clan. So we'll be right back with that. All right, folks, and we are back. And so, Aeleaena, it has been so much fun learning all about your character, your roleplay style, a little bit about you, and getting some great advice from you tonight on for those new role players out there, and maybe for those veteran role players as well. So thank you so much for taking the time and patience to answer all of Turwinkle's pestering questions tonight.
Oh, it's not a problem. I thank you so much, and I'm sorry it took me a bit longer than expected, but I'm glad that we were finally able to get this done, and I had a blast.
You bet. We really, again, sometimes you got to savor those interviews that sometimes it takes a little bit to get to, but in the end, they're always fun, and I always have a great time learning about role players and their stories. So thank you so much. And so, folks, with that, we are going to hearth on back to the Light Hopes Chapel to get Turwinkle's final thoughts on this wonderful interview with Aeleaena of the Blood Wolf Clan.
And before you go,
whoa,
have a nice. And with that out of the way, it's time to take care of you and your meddlesome friend.
Alrighty, folks, and we are back. And so, Turwinkle, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Indubitably.
So let's give Aeleaena a wonderful thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Turwinkle, you can do better than that. Come on now.
I am in your debt.
There you go. That's a little better. Okay. So, folks, if you like this episode, click that like button. If you'd like to comment on this episode or on any of our others, please do so below. Let us know what you liked and let us know what you didn't. And finally, if you'd like to subscribe, well, we would love to have you. So just hit that subscription button today. Well, excellent job as always, Turwinkle. And Turwinkle, we will see you next time.
I'll miss you.
We'll miss you too, Turwinkle. Bye-bye.